Paul Felder versus Rafael dos Anjos just took place in the main event of UFC Fight Night Vegas 14, Felder versus dos Anjos, and it was an amazing fight while it lasted. It lived up to the expectations, and one thing I will say before we even react to this fight is just a quick round of applause for Paul Felder on 5 days' notice, stepping in and taking RDA to a close decision, in fact a split decision, which in my opinion is crazy. So we're going to talk about that split decision at the end or towards a different part of this video. But I want to talk about Felder's performance on short notice. Looked good, had good takedown defense. But it all came down to kind of how I predicted the fight would go, but with no finish. I thought RDA would eventually get the finish in the later rounds against Felder. But what happened was what I predicted. I thought RDA was going to go out there, work the body of Felder in the first 2 rounds, and then take him down towards the end of those rounds and go for the grappling. Thought that was a huge factor because RDA had trained an entire camp for Islam Makhachev, a grappler, and Felder, even though he had a cardio for, and he said this in his post-fight interview as well, Felder, I said before the fight, Felder, although he has cardio for striking and just being in good shape cardio, he doesn't have wrestling cardio. Like, how many takedowns has Felder had shot on him in that camp? Not any whatsoever. He's been training for a triathlon. That's where the difference in this fight was. But I will say this. Before we even talk about more, let me just get my saliva in my mouth, for God's sake. I'm very excited about this. Felder would have won on full camp. I believe that. I said before that maybe I'd still pick RDA in a full camp, I'm not sure. But on a full camp, Felder most definitely still would have won that fight, in my opinion. It was a close fight, don't get me wrong, and still competitive. I thought there was 2 rounds that could maybe go to Felder. The only round I gave to Felder was the 4th round. I thought RDA did enough to win the 3rd round, and I also thought some of them strike numbers were very off. I've just checked the official strike stats now. RDA outlands him 22-17 in the 1st round, gets a takedown there as well. Clear rounds for RDA. I saw in the middle of the fight they had significant strikes in favor of Felder in the 1st round, which I said was wrong. Because it's not hard to count, but okay. Clear round 1 for RDA, in my opinion. Round 2, also clear for RDA, even though he got outlanded by 2 strikes. I thought he got enough takedowns in that round, including a big slam as well. That is more than a takedown, you know what I mean? Like, some people get takedowns where they'll drag you to one knee and then it's officially counted as a takedown. In my opinion, a slam, although still just one takedown, a slam takedown is a bit more impactful and significant than dragging someone to one knee. You know what I mean? So I thought I gave Rafael dos Anjos that round as well. Then round 3, he outlands Felder by 1 and also wins the grappling exchanges. I thought he won that round. Round 4 I thought could go to Felder. Round 5 was RDA as well. Felder apparently landed more significant strikes. I believe some of those might have been off of his back with some elbows, but RDA controlled him too much in that round as well, including landing some big shots towards the end of the round, really putting some weight behind him. Too many takedowns for RDA. It could have been 3-2. I think it was 4-1. That's my honest opinion of how the fight went. But Felder did good, man. He made every round competitive, but RDA just a little bit too much. The grappling was the difference in this fight. Felder looked good, man. You can't take it away from Felder. I found myself in the middle of the fight, even though I picked RDA to win, I found myself thinking, like, come on, Felder. Like, you can do this. Like, it was such a cool storyline, you know? 5 days notice, he steps in, offered the commentary team into the cage. If he called out someone, it would build such a big marketable narrative into his next fight. That would be a huge next fight if Felder pulled this one off. But RDA gets it done, in my opinion. Good performance. Kicks to the body were money. Body shots were money. That really worked a massive amount on Felder in the first 2 rounds. Takedowns were good as well. It made Felder sort of second guess him throwing too many kicks. He started changing those into front kicks and knees down the middle rather than round kicks, which he was throwing in the early rounds because he feared the takedown of RDA, which you can't blame him for fearing the takedown. He hadn't trained takedown defense the entire camp. So definitely Felder would have won on full camp. But RDA gets it done. Works him. Could have been 5-0. I think it was 4-1. Round 4 I thought went to Felder. 3-2, we can have an argument. But split decision Felder. The judging tonight. First K. Hansen gets robbed. Now this shit. Mays wins the first round on the early prelim opener against, or wins the 3rd round somehow against Root Martinez. Hansen gets robbed. And then they do this and give... I don't know how it was a split decision. But whatever, all good. RDA wins, in my opinion, unanimously. It should have been unanimous, but it was a good fight, man. I'm happy for Felder stepping in. Made for a good show. Not fight of the night. I think there's other fights that were better on the night, but a good scrap. Back and forth. Both guys landed good shots. Yeah, what more can I say? RDA in the post-fight speech came out there, called out Conor McGregor, said we're the only two real champions of the lightweight division. We're the only two guys that were official champions, undisputed, rather than interim champions. We should be the guys that fight for the belt. I think this is a wasted call-out, in my opinion. Yes, it's going to get headlines for RDA, but I don't think he needs headlines at this point in his career. He just needs to secure a straight path towards the title shot. So if I was RDA's manager, I would tell him, listen, you're not an unknown guy. Calling out Conor McGregor after a fight is good if you're an unknown guy. If you're not going to get a McGregor fight, which RDA is not going to get a McGregor fight, the only reason you call him out is to boost your profile and get a bunch of people talking about a potential fight between you and Conor McGregor. Chael Sonnen makes a video tomorrow. This guy versus Conor McGregor. Who wins the fight? I think you guys would be surprised. There's many moving parts. Third base with a catcher's mitt. You know what I mean? He'll offer you this. He'll offer us this. But still, RDA calls out McGregor. My opinion, wasted. I think he should have called out Charles Oliveira. Looking to come back towards the first quarter of 2021. RDA versus Charles Oliveira in February or March. Main event of a fight night. Main card of a pay-per-view. Either one of those two options would be amazing in RDA's next fight. And if he wins that one against Charles Oliveira, maybe we can then do him versus a guy like, I don't know, the loser of Poirier. Like if Poirier loses to McGregor and needs a bounce-back fight, maybe Gaethje or Chandler loses, or Ferguson wins a fight, or Dan Hooker beats his next opponent and needs one more fight for a title shot, and they want to do Dan Hooker versus RDA. Those would be some good fights, but I just don't see him getting a McGregor one whatsoever. But you know what? He called him out, so good job. Paul Felder also in the post-fight interview didn't retire, which I was very happy about, because it seems like a not very good moment to retire in your career after a loss, of course. But also, I feel like if I was going to retire as a fighter, I'd want to do it on a full camp, knowing that I could, like, knowing 100% whether I could or could not hang. Because I feel like Felder after this fight thinks to himself, fuck, if I'd just taken this on full camp, I actually would have fucking beaten this guy pretty easily. But still, I don't think he's going to retire. He said he's not going to retire, which I'm glad. He gave a bit of a speech as well, so he's going to get a lot of fans from this either way. His stock did not drop, but his ranking will. That's a big problem. He said he doesn't care about rankings, but the matchmakers really do. So, you know, it's a pretty tricky situation for Felder right now, but it depends who he takes on. If Felder wants to take on a Savage, he can get right back in there and beat some good guy. He didn't take too much damage in here. I mean, he's obviously maybe going to take off Christmas, but I could see Felder coming back in March, April, something like this. Didn't take too much damage. Took a lot of shots to the body, a couple shots to the leg, had a cut opened up on his face. Those are things that are going to heal up by Christmas, and then maybe get back in there against... He's going to drop down the fucking rankings, man. And it really annoys me that he is. I hope that he doesn't, because I don't think you can justify putting Kevin Lee above him, and I don't think you can justify putting Al Iaquinta above him, or Diego Ferreira. I think he still should be ranked above all of those guys that are number 8, 9, and 10, even though he's number 7. He should be ranked above Oliveira. I know he lost to Dan Hooker, who's at number 5, so fair enough, put him below Dan Hooker. But he beat Oliveira by TKO to elbows in the second round, not decades ago. You know what I mean? Like, he beat him, like, what, 5 years ago or something like that? I mean, it's a relevant win. I think he should be above Charles Oliveira. Oliveira's beat one ranked guy in Kevin Lee. Other than that, he's beat Nick Lentz and Jared Gordon. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Felder's done more. So I'd say move Felder above Oliveira. Move everyone down by 1 and just slide in RDA at number 6 spot and move Oliveira down to 8 and then shift everyone else out. But they probably won't do that. They're probably going to move Paul Felder down to, like, number 9 or something stupid like that. And I feel like a great next fight for Paul Felder would be Al Iaquinta. Get him back in there, a very winnable opponent. He definitely beat Al Iaquinta in my opinion, especially looking at how he looked here on 5 days notice against RDA. Felder versus Al Iaquinta in April or March of next year sounds good to me. If he wins that one, jump him back up because he's a big established name now. Everyone knows who Paul Felder is, but good job Paul Felder, man. He was going to make about $2 grand this weekend on commentary, but instead he made what? I think we did the maths. It was $92,000 Felder just made. Obviously, there's going to be taxes and he has to pay his coaches. Or does he? Because they ain't do a training camp for him. How does that work? If you take a fight on short notice, do you still pay your coaches the same wage? If I was a coach and my fighter, and I was just training the rest of my gym, and my fighter calls me and says, hey, I'm fighting in a couple of days, I'd say, yeah, you can kind of keep the money then. I'd maybe take a bit of a share, but I wouldn't want my full share of me going through an entire training camp with that fighter. So someone let me know. Has anyone heard anything about that in an interview with a coach or something? I wonder if they still ask for the same amount of money as they do for an 8-week training camp, even when the fighter took it on short notice, because that was basically all Paul Felder. I know that his coaches got him to the point of being skilled enough to compete, and they were in his corner, so fair play paid him for being in the corner, but they didn't invest any of their time in a training camp. So maybe Felder will make a little bit more money. I think it's good for him. 92 grand in his bank account. He'll probably make about 50 grand of that by the time taxes are taken and, you know, coaches are paid and expenses are paid and this kind of thing. But that's 50 grand in his bank, and he also, it's good money, you know what I mean? And he wasn't going to make 50 grand this weekend, and now he's made 50 grand. And it's not like he got concussed all over the place. I mean, don't get me wrong, RDA had some good moments. He rocked him with a head kick, I think, a little bit at one point. Landed a good left hook, some stinging jabs in the fight as well. I think he hurt him to the body at one point as well. I saw Felder tuck his elbow at one point with a body shot, but I don't think he was really badly hurt. But I definitely think he acknowledged a shot to the body, got a cut opened up above his head. But overall, good performance, I thought. RDA did good. Felder did really good as well. I still think RDA would have beat Makhachev. People are going to call me crazy there, but I do think that RDA would have beaten Makhachev in their fight. And I was going to pick him to beat Makhachev as well. I was talking about it for weeks. But Makhachev pulls out, and now we won't see Makhachev until next year. One thing I don't want to see, though, is RDA take on some random up-and-comer in the division. Him versus Charles Oliveira makes all the sense. Older Brazilian guy. Charles Oliveira, younger, but still kind of old Brazilian guy, but still in his prime more than RDA is. I'm sure we can all agree. Good fight. Past the Brazilian torch. Does the older guy continue and rise like Glover Teixeira in a Brazilian resurrection? Or does Charles Oliveira have his own resurrection in his prime and get the jump on RDA? I think that would be a good matchup. It's better than Oliveira versus Dariush for Oliveira, especially because RDA is going to be much higher ranked now, so I don't see why Oliveira would decline it. Good fight for both. Interesting, though. Very interesting. I just thought Felder looked better than I expected, to be honest with you. Landed some good body kicks, some good front kicks, some good right hands, some good lead hooks as well, but just didn't have the size and bully ability in the takedown defense required to make RDA start second-guessing himself like he does against Usman, Colby, like even Kevin Lee in certain moments. Kevin Lee was getting him down to the ground, but Leon Edwards had him second-guessing himself with the takedowns, but Felder just doesn't have that in his arsenal. One moment got a takedown on RDA, but RDA gets right back up. It was just not enough. On full camp, he would have got it done, but you know what? Round of applause, Felder. He saved an entire card. Let's just call it how it is. Without Felder on this card, he would have saved the entire card. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip.